When I have this stunning Echeveria in stock, it sells out almost immediately. In full color, it pretty much glows. Echeveria pulvinata ruby is known under a few different names. The most common are Chenille Plant, Plush Plant, Red Velvet, Ruby Blush, or my favorite, Ruby Slippers. Ruby is a cultivar of Echeveria pulvinata, which is a succulent species native to Mexico. It forms a rosette shape that can grow to approximately 15 cm in width and 30 cm in height. Ruby is a little different to most other Echeveria. Rather than forming a low rosette, it grows as a small shrublet. Multiple rosettes will grow out of the main stalk and each individual one will branch out. In ideal conditions, this succulent can have over 10 rosettes, each growing on a longer brown stalk. The whole plant can resemble a mini rosette tree. Ruby grows plump, spoon-shaped leaves ending in a soft point. They are covered in tiny soft white hairs which make it appear as if the plant has been frosted over. New leaves in the center are the hairiest, but as the plant grows they seem to thin out. The cool thing about the hairs is that when ruby colors up, they also turn red. This is what creates the amazing ruby glow. This may come as a bit of a disappointment, but ruby isn't always very ruby. During the warmer months, ruby is more likely to look like this. The red color fades significantly, sometimes altogether, but once the temperatures start getting colder, the red glow will return. Echeveria pulvinata ruby is a sun lover and will need a certain amount of sunlight to grow well. It will tolerate shade and filtered light outdoors, but it is likely to grow leggy and with minimal color. Moreover, it will be susceptible to fungal disease and rust if the shade is too dark. Ruby is not a good indoor plant and will start to struggle in a month or so as it's simply not bright enough in an average house for this succulent. It's more likely than not it would eventually die indoors. You'd need a lot of direct sun or plant growing lights to keep it alive. This succulent can be grown in pots as well as frost-free gardens. In the garden, it has to be planted where water doesn't pool after rain. Raised gardens or slopes are ideal. The best potting medium for succulents in pots is a good quality succulent potting mix. It should have the right pH, good drainage, and will ensure your ruby grows well. In the garden, ruby will grow best if a bit of potting mix, any premium mix will do for this, is worked in with the soil to break it apart and help the thin roots spread. Dense hard soil can make them grow slow. When it comes to watering, you'll have to be a bit careful as ruby does not appreciate her leaves wet. The tiny hairs trap water droplets and this can cause rust as well as other fungal disease. Personally, I've not had trouble with rot, but rust is a huge problem in wet, humid weather. Therefore, ruby may not do well in climates where it gets humid often and may need to be kept under cover. Here at the nursery, ruby is kept outdoors along with other pulvinata cultivars during the dry years and in the greenhouse during rain. Many hairy succulents tend to struggle with fungal disease when their leaves get wet often. The occasional rain is not going to cause trouble, but prolonged wet weather will. This is why when this plant is kept in shade, the chances of rust increase. The sun will dry the leaves out in no time, but in the shade they stay wet longer. The absolute best way to water ruby is to wet the soil or place the pot in a dish of water until the potting mix is saturated. Using a hose every now and again is okay too. I use overhead sprinklers, but I do make sure these plants are in the sun so they don't stay wet too long. Temperature-wise, ruby grows best in frost-free parts of the world, but should cope during light frosts. When exposed to frost for longer periods, it can suffer frost burns. If snow and frost is normal during winter in your climate, it may be best to bring this succulent indoors for the duration. In summer, during heat waves, potted plants should be placed in shade or under shade cloth as ruby may suffer sunburn when in very hot direct sun. Echeveria pulvinata ruby can be propagated from leaves and cuttings. It should also grow from seed, but this propagation method can be unreliable and seeds can take a very long time to become a fully grown plant. Leaf propagation can be a bit unreliable and not all leaves will grow a leaf baby. It is, however, possible to propagate ruby this way and the leaves come off easily. To pull leaves off, simply gently tuck to the side. You'll want the whole leaf to come away from the stalk without breaking it. Leaves can then be placed either straight on top of potting mix or left in a tray in dry, bright spot until new growth and roots appear. After a few new leaves emerge, they can be potted up. Once potted up, you can start watering as well. New growth should appear within about 3 weeks of the leaf being pulled off. It is unlikely leaves will grow well during winter, especially if your climate is cold. It's always best to propagate leaves in spring or summer when not too hot. For more instant results, cuttings can be propagated fairly easily. Bigger or smaller rosettes will grow well. After cutting them off with a clean pair of scissors, leave the cuttings to dry for a day so the wound heals. This will prevent any disease getting into the plant through the fresh cut. If you want to try a more unusual propagation method, flower stalks can also be propagated just like cuttings. When the wound has dried up, pop the cutting in the pot. Once the roots have grown all over, the plant will be more resilient. Roots should appear within 2 to 3 weeks. Again, best time to propagate is spring and summer, but if you don't get frosts in winter, early autumn is good too. During heat waves, make sure the cuttings and leaves are shaded from the strong sun. Thanks to the tiny hairs, Echeveria pulvinata are not a favorite of the usual succulent pests. However, this will not stop the occasional mealybug to snuggle in between the leaves and become almost invisible at first glance, as the hairs also allow it to blend in. I have not seen many aphids try to attack either, even during flowering time. Slugs, snails, caterpillars and grasshoppers can sometimes take a bite, but if there's other succulents around, they'll leave ruby be. Ruby flowers are a sight to behold. They come up on a tall stalk around winter time, though this can vary depending on where in the world you are. The flowers are orange and wrapped up in fuzzy outer leaves that will grow red hairs on the edges just like the rosettes below. Truly stunning. Echeveria pulvinata is a safe, non-toxic succulent to have around pets and little humans. Despite there being no toxic properties to this succulent, we do not recommend eating it. And that is all for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you'd like to add anything or ask a question, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit that subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.